So I'm speaking about Jupiter and Saturn conjoining in the first degree of Aquarius on the winter solstice, and the importance of what astrologers call the Great Conjunction. That is the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Every 20 years, roughly, Jupiter and Saturn make a conjunction in the sky, a true conjunction, and that's where they actually meet in that same degree on the ecliptic. So their projected positions onto the ecliptic are exactly the same. That happens roughly every 20 years. The degrees slowly seep ahead, so that once every about 200 years, Jupiter and Saturn make a conjunction in the next element of the zodiac. So, for example, we've had Jupiter and Saturn meeting in the sky in Earth signs starting about 1800. And in 1980 was the first time they began to meet in air signs. They met in Libra in 1980 3 times. It was a triple pass conjunction. But you see, air follows Earth in the zodiac. And so you go from Earth to air. So the great conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn actually make a larger cycle of about a 200-year cycle in a particular element. They call it the mutation conjunction, when that conjunction first moves into a new element. And we get that in 2020, because after the conjunction here in 2020, which is in Aquarius, the next, several in this series will only be in air signs. Whereas in 2000, we had a true conjunction in Taurus, so we went back to Earth signs. But from now on, they will only be in air signs. The other way we look at this is what's called a mean conjunction, and this is just an average of the paths of Jupiter and Saturn. It's sort of a mathematical meeting point. It's not the apparent or true conjunction. In 2000, the mean conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn began in air signs in Gemini, and that will continue on for about the next 200 years. And so to summarize, 1980 was the first true conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Libra, the first air sign conjunction in a long, long time, whether true or mean. 2000 was the first mean conjunction in air signs, that was in Gemini. And then in 2020, we'll have both the mean conjunction and true conjunction in the zodiacal sign of Aquarius. And so it begins this kind of end of the transition from Earth conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn into these air conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn. It's a 40-year period where we've had this transition. This is from Benson Bobrick, his book, The Faded Sky, the first chapter. New York Times, 2006. I think he summarizes this pretty well. But he says here that shifts between triplicities or elements, so that's what we're having now from Earth to air, were associated with drastic change. And this is according to the ancient astrology, and really the medieval astrology, and maybe the Arabic astrology, so kind of the late Hellenistic into the medieval. This is when this technique develops. And that you have these periods of great change when there's a mutation conjunction. That's what we experience now, this 40-year cycle, 1980 to 2020. We're in it now. You've been born during this great change, once in a few generation moment. I mean, you've been born to witness something amazing. And I want to come back, I want to think about this as it relates to the computer age that we've been in. Because remember, the air element can signify computers and communication. It's that digital transformation through air, these like wireless technology or across large spaces. And in 1980, you can see this chart, you really saw the rise of the personal computer. In early 1980, you had IBM, BASIC, Apple II OS, and those personal computers just continued to get more and more advanced. You had the Macintosh PowerBook in 91, the Apple Macintosh Portable in 89, Windows released Windows 95 in 1995, on and on. So I'm thinking that first conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in air in Libra was really about the rise of the personal computer. Then you had the mean conjunction in 2000, and I see this as really about the rise of the internet that we kind of know today, because right around 2000 you have Google being founded in 98. You had Wikipedia in 2001, LinkedIn, MySpace. You have all the social media giants that we live with today were founded right around this transition. Around 2000, the mean conjunction in Gemini. And then what you're seeing now is the rise of AI. And I feel like this conjunction in Aquarius is it's just a natural progression. First, you develop the computer, the connectivity between computers, and then now you can get these algorithms that kind of use that data to develop intelligence. This is what they call artificial intelligence. And we're really seeing that in the second part of the teens. You had this AlphaGo the first computer program that defeated a human Go player, and it taught itself completely using AI algorithms. So as we approach this 2020, both true conjunction and mean conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, this AI moment is really coming into focus. This 40-year transition into air has really been about computers and all of the great things that computers can do for us. The other thing I want to mention is we have a historical example that we can turn to. So in the 13th and 14th centuries was the last time Jupiter and Saturn were conjoining in air signs, and this is a period that historians call, some historians, Pax Mongolica. Pax Mongolica. My pronunciation may need some help there, but this was the Mongol conquest that brought stability and trade throughout large parts of Asia and Europe. Some say the largest empire we've ever known, and there was the Silk Road that they established as a result of that conquest. So you can see that Saturn is at work there, right? The authority. Jupiter can expand, expanding really empire. I mean, Saturn is kind of the quintessential planet of empire. And remember, Saturn rules Aquarius, and Saturn is the triplicity ruler of air. And so, and as well as Mercury. And that is about trade and trade under an empire, under the auspices of an expanded empire. That's what we saw in the 13th to 14th centuries. And the other things that we saw was these really, clean and important advancements in technology. Mercury style or air element style technology. Movable type was invented. Rockets were invented. Eyeglasses were invented. All things that are about air, traveling through the air, expanding out into other places, adventuring. Movable type is very Mercury. It's about reading and writing. Eyeglasses, the same, reading. So how we see clearly. So we've seen this kind of analog. If you just want to think about what that might mean for the coming period, I think the AI analogy fits quite well, because that's the cutting edge of our current technology as we move into AI and what AI can do for us. All right, and we see here with the AI moment, we have people like Ray Kurzweil who have said that humans will merge with computers by 2045. That's the date he's predicted. And this was from 2019 in October. He has said that. Even the very best human is just another notch to pass, is what he told the COSM Technology Summit. Kind of a dark view, because it really demotes the human in this hierarchy of importance, which maybe humans, I don't think humans need to have preeminence, but it is kind of dark to say that the human is just another notch. Wow, because of what that attitude could justify, sacrificing humans. I think it's dangerous. But you see here the idea of the technological singularity, that it's a hypothetical point in time which technological growth becomes uncontrollable, irreversible, and it results in unforeseen changes to human civilization. These unforeseen changes to human civilization are going to be intense, and that's the great challenge, I think, of this age. So let's get a little bit into the chart. You see here, this is December 21st. This is a chart for Budapest. It's just after the sun ingresses into Capricorn, several hours after. And so this is happening right at the winter solstice, which adds more intensity to it. And it's also happening right after a solar eclipse, which will have taken place of the week before this, so that we will not have a syzygy yet after that eclipse. So we're still arguably in eclipse season. Sometimes we say the first syzygy after an eclipse kind of restarts the energy. So this is doubly charged. It's eclipse season. It's the winter solstice. I like the balance here between the elements and the modalities. It's actually quite balanced energy. You don't have too little of any element, a little bit more mutable energy than fixed. And the water element is maybe hurting. There's only one planetary point in water, and that is the moon, will be in Pisces. But everything else is fairly balanced. So I think that gives us some grounding as we experience this threshold and the moment of this threshold. And again, this is a larger cycle, which will have taken place for, like I said, 40 years before this moment. So it's not like this exact moment is going to be contain everything about this transition, but I do think it'll be palpably felt, especially amongst astrologers and sensitives and people that are kind of into these energetic mappings. Maybe the water being a little bit less than the other elements. You can think about augmenting that. Have a glass of water, make sure you're drinking water, keep water around you, or just go with no water. Sometimes it's nice to have that fire and air. Very active elements are kind of dominant. So you might want to think about using this to move into your projects or engaging with this energy in a more active way. The moon will be waxing in Jupiter ruled Pisces. So the moon is ruled by Jupiter, one of the planets that's making the Great Conjunction. And its next perfected aspects are actually to Saturn and then Jupiter by sextile. So the moon will move out of Pisces and then in early Aries, one after the other, hit Jupiter and Saturn. And it's only 4 degrees away, which is like several hours later. So I do think that the moon is a trigger here. Maybe not in so much as it's a trigger at the moment of the exact conjunction, because Pisces is an aversion to Aquarius, but soon after you're going to get a kind of a continuation of this energy as the moon makes those aspects. The other thing about the chart, Mercury in Capricorn in its own term rules the Great Conjunction by both term and triplicity. So triplicity, depending on where you are, Mercury is the night triplicity ruler of air signs. So in Budapest here, it will be a nighttime. So Mercury will have triplicity rulership. I think if you're in America, it'll be daytime, but still Mercury has great significance in these air signs. It rules Gemini. It's the triplicity ruler at nighttime of Aquarius. And the Saturn in Aquarius rules the Great Conjunction by domicile, but then Mercury, like I said, rules the Great Conjunction by term. So this is a Mercury-Saturn moment, right? Both Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury will be in the term of Mercury. And Mercury has a big role to play. And I think this particular moment, the cycle we're entering into in maybe the next 20 years, because these conjunctions also are energetic maps for the next 20-year cycle. Now, astrologers will go to the Aries ingress before the Great Conjunction as really the map to use. But you can use it, maybe this is a secondary chart. And I think that the Mercury theme is so, we've already talked about things that are so mercurial that it sort of goes without saying. Remember, Mercury is technology, medicine, duplicity, changeability, counting, programming, numbers, computers. Saturn is authority, structure, discipline, power, stability, longevity, isolation, and imprisonment. So you think about using technology for authority's sake. And that's how I see this cycle manifesting, is that as the kind of techno empire expands over the globe, you'll have opportunities for trade, for exchange, for financial exchange. I mean, just think about what the internet's done. I can talk to people all over the globe from sitting where I am here in Budapest. I just press a button, it's crystal clear. Now, maybe not in some countries that limit access, but you can see how when you have a regime of technology that covers large spaces, it opens up opportunities for trade. You look here at the caduceus. Why is Mercury associated with medicine? Well, Mercury is the patron of travelers because Mercury moves so quickly in the sky. It's really hard to see. It can become a night planet and a day planet very quickly. Doctors used to have to travel a lot in order to visit patients, so maybe that was part of it. And you can look at the ancient significations of Mercury. Medicine and medical kind of analysis, it is one of those significations in the texts. But this is a key for me for understanding what we're about to enter into. This is from an article by Michael A. Peters and Tina Beasley. You can find it on tandfonline.com and then just type their names. And they quote in their article Roberto Esposito, who is writing about the technological and medical challenges of 2020. And let me just read this, because this is, to me, key. He says, "The fact is that today anyone with eyes to see cannot deny the full deployment of biopolitics. From biotechnology interventions on areas once considered exclusively natural, such as birth and death, to biological terrorism, to the management of immigration and more or less serious epidemics, all current political conflicts have at their center the relationship between politics and biological life." And that, I think, is the essential feature here. Mercury is that detailed analysis of the body through the medicine and through technology, and then Saturn is authority. And so you have this combination between the coming under the authority of governments, the biological life in even more detailed and expansive ways. MIT Technology Review had a wonderful article back in March of this year, March 17th. They have an article about how the future will look in terms of using technology of the cell phone to track what's going on in the body of citizens, so that the citizens have to basically open up their physical bodies, let these authorities come in and examine their bodies vis-a-vis apps and cell phones and the digital, networks that we've built to get permission to then interface into the society. So some call this a technocratic age, some call this a biopolitical age. I think those are both really great terms. But that's what we enter into, and that's what I see this conjunction as showing the way ahead for. And now I want to turn to a conversation about some of the fixed stars that are operative during this conjunction. And this came out of a conversation with my friend Archeus A on Twitter. But through that conversation, we pivoted to look at the fixed stars at this moment of the Great Conjunction. There's 3 stars that are really important that will be very close to Saturn and Jupiter. Okay, the first is Taurus, second is Altair, and both of those, Taurus and Altair, are in the Aquila constellation, which is a bird. It's an eagle. They're very close together. And then the other star would be Sham. Sham is in the Sagitta constellation, which is the arrow right above Aquila. And let's just dive deeper. I'm not going to go too deep into these right now, but I just want to say that Ptolemy associates Taurus and Altair with Mars and Jupiter, Sham with Venus and Saturn. And so with Sham, we get that Saturnian energy. With Aquila, we get the Jupiter. So even within these fixed star associations, we have the 2 planets that will be conjoining represented. But this is all about the myth of Prometheus, which I think is so apropos given the themes we've already discussed. Prometheus, just to give a little bit of background, he saw that human beings were suffering. He's a god himself. He went and stole a ray of the sun to give it to humanity, to help humanity alleviate suffering. He wanted to give humans technology so that they could suffer less. And he did it without permission. And Zeus didn't believe that man was worthy of that. And so punished Prometheus by chaining him to a mountain and then ordering Aquila, that eagle, to eat out his organs every day. And of course, Prometheus is a god, so he would heal, and the next day the wounds would be made anew by the pet eagle of Zeus, Aquila. So Aquila is a punishing animal sent to inflict pain and retribution on Prometheus. I really like the Promethean idea here as a way into Jupiter, Saturn, and the air element. And we can think about how can AI actually be a gift to humanity? You know, AI, when you study it, really can make things that are amazingly efficient. It can revolutionize supply chains. It can help heal, energy efficiency. It can create new engineering concepts. So it's really a powerful tool that I think can really upgrade our human experience. The thing is, Hercules eventually saves Prometheus, and he uses that arrow Sagitta, that's where the fixed star Sham is, to kill Aquila. So he kills the bird, rescues Prometheus, and that's, so Hercules is kind of the hero here. So Manilius talks about Aquila as being, he doesn't talk about it very positively. He said they'll be bent on spoil and plunder if they're born into that star. One even with bloodshed, will draw no line between peace and war, between citizen and foe. And this is where I think that kind of the technocratic age that we're entering into kind of can be dangerous, where you don't really have every citizen is kind of a foe, and because their bodies, unless they give over their bodies to technology, it's very dangerous in a way. And I think that Aquila being so close here can describe maybe the negative side of what we're going to enter into, but that the positive is the Sagitta, right? And the arrow, which was used by Hercules to kill Aquila and free Prometheus. And here I like what Manilius says: fatherhood supplied his skill, a natural instinct overcame the danger and delivered the boy from sleep and death alike, given then a second life. And so it's about giving a second life to humanity, really. And I think maybe with the AI can kind of rejuvenate the human experience, like I just said, and kind of give us a second life in a way that can augment the best parts of humanity can be augmented by the technology, not with the Kurzweilian model where humans just become this notch to basically be quashed. And so this is kind of what I see as this great moment we're in. Humankind faces an extreme challenge against the rise of technology, but can we retain our spirit, our soul, amidst what threatens to be kind of a biodigital chains, those Promethean chains? It's this biodigital chain-like component to this age. And I think the arrow of Hercules, that rescuing arrow, we can lean into this idea, like what is our arrow, our Sagitta in this age? How do we safely protect the human soul against this onslaught of technological control? One solution I will give is, I think, meditation practice. Anything where you don't use technology having your day include some of that is a way to traverse this era. So turn off the phone, sit and breathe. There's nothing like that. Go for a walk without your phone. These kinds of things I think will be essential to retain our spirit. Right, the cartomancy pull is the Page of Hearts, and this is a water sign. It's mutable water. It's Pisces. I think the moon being in Pisces at the moment of the Great Conjunction can help us maybe tie this card to what we're dealing with here. But the pages and these are the jacks. You know, they're timid, they're uncertain. It's that youth, that moment of youth, it's the emotional side of it. And so I think that with this, just know if you're having emotional uncertainty or you're feeling fluttering or not sure if this is right or wrong, just know that that's a sort of a normal emotional reaction when things are so dynamically altering in the society. That sometimes there might be good days, or if this feels right, other days might be, oh, this feels really wrong, or this is uncomfortable. I remember when I first got a cell phone, it took me a while before I even wanted to carry one. But eventually, I think about 2012, I embraced the smartphone, and it was this whole emotional gyration, though, of integrating in with the technology, figuring out how to make it work for me. I loved it, I hated it. And so this is the kind of page or jack emotional uncertainty. Go with it. Eventually you'll adjust. You know, the page becomes the queen, becomes fixed in that element. All right, and as always, you can book astrology readings with me. I love to read charts. Just go to my website, sjanderson144, click here to schedule a reading, that first link, and I will take you to the scheduler. And you can also, this is a new feature, schedule cartomancy reading with me. It's on the same readings page. Just go down and put schedule appointment when you see the cartomancy section. All right, and always you can follow me, sjanderson144, on Twitter and Instagram at that handle, and I look forward to interacting with you.